In the heart of a busy medieval town, in a crowded market square where anyone could stop and rest, there sat a treasure left in plain sight. It was not chained, it was not guarded. It simply rested there day after day as merchants, beggars, soldiers, and thieves passed within arm's reach. And in any other city in 15th century Europe, that treasure would have vanished within the hour. But this was not any other city. This was the capital of Vlad the Impaler. And here, no one dared touch it. To understand that legend, you first have to understand the man. Vlad III, ruler of Wallachia, remembered as Vlad Tepes, Vlad the Impaler, and known to history as Dracula, the son of the dragon. He took the throne for the third and most famous time in 1456, inheriting a land caught between two giants, the Christian kingdoms of the west and the advancing Ottoman Empire to the south. He would spend his reign at war with both his enemies abroad and the corruption rotting his country from within. Because before Vlad, Wallachia was a land that barely functioned. The roads belonged to bandits. Traveling merchants were robbed, sometimes murdered. The boyars, the powerful noble families, schemed, betrayed, and overthrew prince after prince, more loyal to their own purses than to any crown. Theft, fraud, and lawlessness were simply the texture of daily life. Justice, where it existed at all, could be bought. For the ordinary person, the world was unsafe, unfair, and unpredictable. Vlad's answer to all of this was terrifyingly simple. He would make the punishment for any crime so extreme, so absolute, that the very thought of breaking the law would freeze a person where they stood. Theft, lying, cheating a customer, cowardice, adultery, all could be met with death, often by impalement. He did not believe in second chances or quiet fines. He believed that fear, applied without mercy and without exception, could do what no court had managed: make people simply stop. In Vlad's Wallachia, fear was the law, and, by the dark logic of his rule, it worked. The roads grew quiet. The bandits disappeared because the bandits were dead. Merchants who had once feared for their lives could suddenly travel in safety. Doors could be left unlocked. And it is from this strange, brutal peace that the legend was born. The story goes that Vlad placed a valuable object of pure gold in a public place in his medieval market town, available to any traveler passing through, with no lock, no guard, and no protection beyond one unspoken truth: take it, and you would die a death so horrific that no amount of wealth could ever be worth it. And so, year after year, it remained untouched. A glittering symbol of a kingdom where a fortune in gold was safer left in the open than a coin in a locked chest anywhere else in Europe. Now, was this literally true? Almost certainly, this is legend, a story told and retold for centuries, with no hard record to prove it. But it survives because it captures something believable about how Vlad ruled. In a land where the price of dishonesty was so visible and so absolute, the idea that no one dared steal from a medieval market square is not hard to imagine at all. The folklore is full of such tales. In one, a wealthy foreign merchant passing through complained that a sum of gold had been stolen from his cart in the night. Vlad promised to find the thief, and quietly had the missing money replaced from his own treasury. But he added one extra coin. When the merchant counted it again, he was honest enough to report the surplus. By then, Vlad had already caught the real thief and had him impaled. Had the merchant lied and kept the extra coin, the story implies he might have shared the same fate. Honesty, in Vlad's world, was not a virtue. It was survival. In another tale, the prince is said to have gathered the kingdom's beggars, the sick and the poor, to a great feast in a large medieval hall, fed them generously, and then asked whether they wished to be free of all want forever. When they said yes, he is said to have had the hall sealed and burned, declaring that no one in his land would live as a burden or a thief. Historians debate how much of this is true and how much is the invention of his enemies. But it tells us how he was remembered, as a man who answered every problem with the same iron certainty. And that brings us to the heart of it, the difference between the man his people knew and the monster the wider world was taught to fear. After Vlad's death, printed pamphlets spread across the German-speaking lands, packed with lurid illustrations and gruesome tales of his cruelty. Many were exaggerations, and some were outright propaganda, produced by the very Saxon merchants and rivals he had punished. To them, he was a bloodthirsty tyrant. But in Romanian oral tradition, the memory was different. There, he was remembered as a harsh but just ruler, the prince who cleansed the roads, humbled the corrupt nobles, and made the weak safe from the strong. Centuries later, a novelist named Bram Stoker would borrow his name, Dracula, and bind it forever to a fictional vampire, completing the transformation of a real warlord into a creature of pure nightmare. So the legend endures, not as proof of history, but as the perfect emblem of an impossible bargain. In Vlad's Wallachia, a fortune in gold left in an open medieval market square was safer than a loaf of bread would be almost anywhere else in Europe. The streets were clean of crime because the gallows and the stakes were always full. And that leaves us with the question that has followed Vlad the Impaler for more than 500 years. If perfect safety can only be bought with perfect terror, is it a price any people should ever be willing to pay? If you want more real stories hidden behind the legends, subscribe to Forgotten History Bites. For more on the true Dracula and the forgotten history, the myths left behind.